Hi, Leah. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hi, Julia. Thanks for having me.
Yes, my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. I love when I get to have an EquiLife Health Coach on the podcast because not only is it someone familiar, but I always end up learning a little bit more about the coaches. We all have great relationships, but being able to kind of chat one-on-one is really nice for me. So I'm looking forward to it. Would you share a little bit with our listeners, kind of currently what you're doing at EquiLife? So you are a health coach, what your kind of day-to-day looks like, and then we'll back it up a little bit, talk about how you got started with IHP and with the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been with EquiLife a year and 9 months, so almost 2 years now. Health coaching full-time, so I absolutely love it. Do lots of lab reviews, going over lab tests on a daily basis. And then now we're kind of broadening our horizons and doing a little bit different things like outreach and a little bit of social media. So super fun. Right up my alley for sure.
Yes. Yeah. I know that as the company grows, things change a little bit in the sense of, where we can kind of reach people, right? I think our part of our goal at this point is to be helping as many people as possible and helping people understand that there are options out there other than just what conventional medicine is providing. So yeah, some of the outreach stuff is amazing. Yeah. So what were you doing before finding IHP, finding EquiLife? I know you have always kind of been in the health industry. Tell us a little bit about where you were before.
Yeah, when I went to college, I was one of those people who didn't know what they want to be when they grew up, and probably was that way for even the beginning of my career, actually. But I worked for a little small health and fitness franchise when I was in college, and the owner of that, she's like, "This is what you need to be doing. You need to be doing, exercise science." I'm like, I don't know. But so she persuaded me, and that's how I kind of started. I got my degree in health and exercise science, and then had a lot of heart-related issues in my family. So I was like, okay, I want to do the cardiac rehab. I want to take it to the medical side. I didn't want to just work at a gym. I wanted to work in the medical field. So I did land a job in cardiac rehab, cardiac and pulmonary rehab, actually. And then I went back to school and got my respiratory therapy degree. So I became a registered respiratory therapist as well. And I stayed in that area for 11 years, working outpatient in cardiac and pulmonary rehab. So loved it, helping people make lifestyle changes and, incorporating exercise and those type things into their life, just on that end of things. Kind of touched, I got sick when I was 31, was diagnosed with MS. So that kind of switched my mind a little bit. I was pretty career driven, and I still am, but that was my main focus then. And so I started digging a little bit deeper, into my own health. And I felt like there was more to this diagnosis than just, your body attacking itself. I kind of wanted to know why. So I started just digging around, looking in different avenues. I, at that time, found another digital health and fitness company that I became certified through and started doing that. And that's how I found Dr. Cabral and got in the IHP world. So kind of been in the world, but not from the IHP aspect of things, looking for that root cause.
Sure. Yeah. But it sounds like even the cardiac stuff that you did, right? It was, that's a little bit of root cause, like dealing with exercise and being able to kind of support somebody more than just here's a medication. That was probably, did you like working in that setting?
Oh, I loved it. I love the relationship. So that's what, I would work some in the hospital, more in acute care, but it was fast-paced, which I liked the fast-paced, but you didn't get a relationship with the client. And then cardiac and pulmonary rehab, cardiac patients were normally with you 3 months. Pulmonary rehab, almost the rest of their life, as long as they could exercise, so they stay long-term. So they were normally older people, but they stayed in my life for a long time after. So I really enjoyed it a lot.
Yes. Yeah. People who listen to this podcast regularly know that I was a personal trainer prior to doing health coaching. And that was what I loved the most about personal training, was that these were clients that I saw multiple times a week, ongoing every single week, right? Even we have health coaching clients that we might see once every 2 weeks or once a month. And that's a pretty, high frequency. but to see someone every single week and go long periods of time. I mean, I had personal training clients for like 4 or 5 years. And same thing, I don't personal train anymore, but I do still see and talk to so many of them. So yeah, it's having those relationships can be, I don't know, it just makes you feel like you're a part of their life in such a positive way. They become part of yours, and it's this long lasting relationship.
Right. Absolutely. Because you learn from them too, right? You're there to teach them, but then you learn so much too that, you even bring into your own life and, kind of start digging a little bit deeper in yourself that you learn from other people. So it's amazing.
Absolutely. Yes. So what I would love to chat about next is there's kind of this one thing that it sounds like you're passionate about, not only that you got to do for yourself, but that you love to do for clients. And it's kind of this aspect of like taking all the information in, whether it be, before we signed on, we were kind of talking about like the pieces of the puzzle. I would love for you to share with our listeners a little bit about your passion for kind of helping your clients deal with, maybe bigger cases, right? A lot of our clients are not just like a 30-minute fix. It takes time, right, to learn, gather all of that, and then kind of implement plans going forward. Talk to us a little bit about what your passion is there. It sounds like something that obviously you had to do with yourself at one point.
Oh yeah, I was a big puzzle, as I like to call it. So it kind of starts back at childhood, that there were things there that I didn't realize until probably I started working at EquiLife. So even before I was here, I was starting my own little private practice, and I knew I had issues. Like I was really born with IBS-C, pretty much, like from early toddler, just always constipation, those type things. So when I got in the IHP world, I was like, okay, I know I have dysbiosis. I know my gut's a mess, so I went directly, I'm going to hit it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to like fix all the things. I'm going to be all better. So I worked on it and I did get some better, but I was still missing something. Like I still had a lot of brain fog, a lot of fatigue, which comes with the, multiple sclerosis diagnosis and those type things. And then just through our team meetings, I would just listen to people and we talk a whole lot about nervous system dysregulation and, our meetings, because we know the clients that typically don't get well or rebalance have some type of, nervous system dysregulation. So I really started thinking about it, and, you think your childhood's normal because that's what that's the known, that's what you were born into. And the more I looked at things and started realizing, both of my parents had a lot of mental health disorders, mom diagnosed with it for sure. So I started thinking like, how would that affect, a child? And then of course, reading and studying, it's like, I probably had a really dysregulated nervous system just dealing with parents like that. And then I live in the South, in case you couldn't tell. I'm a Southern accent.
I love listening to you talk.
Talk and they're like, are you in the South? I'm like, already gave it away that quick. But being in the South, it's super humid here. And mold, I finally figured out, was like a big part of my disease state. So just the home I grew up in was an older home. We didn't have central air and heat. My dad worked nights, so it was always dark and cold. And I remember, like, now that I think back about it, you could see it like in different areas of the house, it being super moldy. So I was like, okay, so some mold there. But then when I thought more about it, I remember my junior high was super old, and it was moldy as well. And then my high school, whoever designed it did like an open atrium, so it would flood like on the inside of the high school. So then I had some mold exposure there, and then even a department I worked at in the hospital. Like I remember in my office, they would change the ceiling tile, from the water damage, but they never really addressed what was under it. So I'm like, I've had mold basically my entire life, when you really looked at it, and then couple that with my nervous system being dysregulated, like I was probably in fight or flight for 30 years, from the mold and then just childhood stuff. So it took a long time to put those pieces together, and then for whatever reason, I didn't even assume parasites. Well, if you're not having daily bowel movements, then of course, more than likely you're going to have parasites. So I kind of had to backtrack a little bit on, okay, how we're taught. Let's start at the beginning. Let's start on these parasites. Let's go back to the gut colonization and then really start tackling the mold. And I still probably have a little bit of mold that I'm still working on to get completely out, but I've seen such huge improvements and my energy levels are so much better. So when I get a client like that, like some of them you just see, you can just see it on some of their lab tests and you know exactly what it is. But then some of them, like you said, it's just not so straightforward. And you do have to like prompt them, hey, let's start thinking back. Like, let's even go back to childhood. Is there something there or a move or, whatever it could be that, when those symptoms started that I really, really enjoy. Probably went off on a tangent there. So, but that's what I enjoy doing is kind of helping them put those pieces together.
Yes. No, that was also great. I mean, I think it's like, if you think of how you actually put a puzzle together, right? You could like have 3 pieces and you're like, oh, those go together. And then, you might find 3 others that go together. And then you realize that those 3 fit to the other 3, right? It's never this like linear finding every single piece that goes step by step by step. And I think our health and wellness is so much related to that in the sense that we don't always know like the next thing that's going to come up with ourselves, with our clients. You might have been able to say like, okay, mold was definitely an issue, but maybe you didn't think, about your childhood until somebody prompted you to think that way, right? I love clients that engage with us on a regular basis because we're able to have regular conversations with them where things come out that they didn't even think may be relevant to their health and wellness, right? We can put those pieces together because we're trained to do so. But I just had a client last week that said to me, she was like, oh, and you know what I forgot to mention? She was like, basically when I was, 16 years old, I had this, ringworm infection and they treated me for pinworms. And I used to swim in this lake. And I was like, okay, well, so we probably need to address parasites. If, that was an issue back then, we are having a reoccurring, instance of yeast and candida, but they don't necessarily think to bring those things up in like 1 30-minute call, right? So being able to like be the investigator ongoing, we're obviously the investigator in our lives ongoing, but in our clients' well-being, it's so beneficial because we're just able to continue to put those pieces together, whether you want to use that analogy or like peeling back the onion. So very few cases are linear where you just start at the beginning and it just keeps getting better. And, you go one step increasing it. Sometimes there's a little bit of a backtrack. Oh, well, okay, we didn't think parasites might have been an issue, but now we need to go back and, look at that. And we kind of just continue to put one piece, together with the other. It's really a natural progression, I think, for so many clients and us as coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. But the world we live in, we want it fixed yesterday. We want the one and done, so I've gotten to, especially those chronic clients that you meet with, I've gotten to where I tell them, I'm not promising you this is a one and done. We may need to look deeper, but this is a good starting spot. So I think it's super important that we tell them up front, because it's, this world is not that way. We don't give you a Band-Aid or a pill to fix it and it's going to be better tomorrow. It's a little bit more of a journey. So yeah,
absolutely. And when the client, can see, what we do is we give them like a little bit to give them, benefit, or they see changes, right? So then they're kind of at least willing to walk the path. And like I said, being able to help clients on a regular basis is really where like beauty comes in, because we're able to just put the next piece in the right spot. And I think too, for a lot of people, it can just be that they need foundations and they're not ready to go like deep, right? Are they a 300-piece puzzle, or are they just going to be like a 6-piece puzzle, right? Everybody is different. But I think the clients that are kind of like willing to dive deep, that's like where our expertise in EquiLife lets us do that, right? Where we're able to kind of work with clients at the capacity that they're willing and wanting to work. But I think having that like investigative nature, which it seems like you've kind of always been that way with yourself, but with your clients, I think is so beneficial for their progress.
Yeah. I think when you stop questioning, whether it's yourself or even a client, that's when you get in trouble. It's a journey. it is definitely a journey. There's no end point, and I have to remind myself of that quite often. You're always going to be striving for more. So with the clients that you do, okay, they're feeling pretty good, but there's always something else they can work on too.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So how much because sometimes like people do work backwards in their quote unquote health journey, right? Where like, it's like, okay, I have bloating, I have gas, I have digestive symptoms. So it must be yeast and candida, right? And then we can kind of like, oh, well, maybe it's parasites. And what was childhood like? And we're not clearing it. So maybe it's your nervous system, right? What point did you kind of realize that some of your childhood nervous system stuff could have been related to, your ability to get and stay well?
Good question. I mean, probably a year ago. Like it didn't take me that long to realize that, there was a lot of things in my previous life, as a child that were there, but probably to a year and a half ago before I really realized, okay, this is probably, why you're not seeing 100% of the results you want to. So it took quite a while.
Yes. Yeah. And we talk about this all the time in our internal meetings with special client cases of things, just the needle's not moving the way that we would expect it to, or the way that most people's needle will move if we're doing like all of the right steps, right? And 9 out of 10 times, it always goes back typically to people that are experiencing very high levels of stress or dysregulated nervous systems based on, years of either trauma or, relationships that weren't serving them. There's so much that can kind of play into it. And we've talked about trauma so many times on this podcast before, and it doesn't have to be major traumatic events. I believe that no one comes out of childhood unscathed in a sense. Like there's always something that whether it be parent relationships that we dealt with that kind of formed us to who we are. And it's partly, yes, can be trauma, but it can be little t, it can be subtle things that make us kind of who we are and shape us into like the way we're going to walk through life. But we also see that that's usually one of the biggest catalysts to people kind of like, quote unquote, not getting well in a way that we would expect them to if they work things through the protocols and the de-stress protocol the way that they're supposed to. And we've talked so much about that even I sometimes will be reminded in meetings like, right, this is, where it kind of can all go back to. And if we're not supporting our nervous system, if we're not supporting stress, if we're not doing some of the work to kind of release built up tension, it's really hard for the body to get the message that it's safe to heal. Like we can worry about all of this stuff because our survival, our safety is taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I can't remember. I think it was the emotion code. I like the emotion code and the body keeps score. Because to your point, like it could be some little, I don't know, somebody at school told you your shoes were ugly. And, you store that, your body stores that emotion in there and and it can manifest and fester up into something bigger and you don't even realize it. And then I know we talk a lot too about people doing all the things, they're more of that, which all of us are too, but that type A, more like driven personality, but that comes from somewhere. Like, why are you, the type A? And so like you have to do all the things. And that normally is going to come from some type of dysregulated nervous system. Yeah, it's the world we're in. You're supposed to do all the things. You're supposed to be a great mother and work and get the kids everywhere and have a good dinner cooked and make sure you're doing your stress management and, all the things. That is the world we live in. But, there's more to it than just that, I think. I really lost my train of thought on that. But, you say it, I think, all the time, your body doesn't really know the difference of doing all the things or if you're being chased by a tiger. So, yeah.
Yes. And when it comes to women, I was just talking, she probably wouldn't mind if I said her name, but I'm not going to, but one very successful, well-known IHP. And we were just talking, we're good friends. And I was saying, oh my gosh, I'm like, I should have been a mom in the early 1900s or like 1970, but I was not cut out for this pace of like, run the kids here, like you said, make sure dinner's cooked, work, rinse the lunch containers, make the lunch for the next day, make sure it's healthy, right? Don't send them with unhealthy, like all of the things that need to be done mentally and physically. Our female hormonal system, our nervous system, specifically when it comes to women, were not designed to run at this pace for years and years and years on end. There's a lot about traditional gender roles that kind of stink, but there's a lot about them that, they got right when it comes to what women need to like nourish their bodies and nourish their nervous system, and what men need, right? Like my husband can't sit still. Like, good, go run an errand, go do, like, there's a reason why he can't sit still. And I can. I'm like, I'm just going to go hide in my room for an hour. Whereas he would never. It's just not, he isn't wired that way. And I believe that there really is a lot to be said for honoring that, that traditional gender role when it comes to what our nervous systems need, right? Female hormone design was not meant for high stress. It throws everything off. And yeah, there's a lot about it that needs to be supported in this modern day society if women are going to be doing all the things that you named too.
Mark's the same way. Like he goes, I'm like, I need a break. Like I have to recharge, and he just doesn't understand. But I'm the exact same way you are. I can sit in my room and stare at the wall, and I'm okay with it, but not him. He's not going to do it.
Yes. Or I'm even like, I just like, can everybody just stop talking? Nobody can talk at me. I actually just said to my kids yesterday, I was like, guys, if you want to talk, you have to go in another room. They weren't even talking to me, but like just listening to them talk. And they were like, why do we have to go in another room? And I was like, you know what? You don't have to, but I'm going to go in another room because I'm just like way too overstimulated versus my husband's partaking in the conversation. And I'm like, I'll just stop speaking.
Stella will tell you that. I'm like, wait, I'm completely overstimulated. You have to stop. But I feel like I didn't get that parent trait like Mark has, where he can totally shut it down too. Like there can be 20 things going on and he is not hearing any of it. I hear everything. Like I'm always like, I hear it, I see it. I'm always watching. I didn't get that parent. Some parents have it. I didn't get it. I would like to.
But don't you think that we're just biologically hardwired to get everything? Because I don't know many women who just like shut it off. I know a lot of husbands, dads that can just kind of shut it off. Like they don't hear the baby crying in the middle of the night, or like, no, she threw up. I didn't hear her throw up. Like, how did you not hear that? I actually heard her get up before she threw up. But I think we're just hardwired in that sense to, I don't know, get it. And even if for women who don't have kids, who are maybe, dealing with parents who are unwell or siblings, I think we are natural, biologically hardwired to take care. And I think that's, of course, why we are also affected more by like that childhood trauma of kind of being on alert of what's the situation, what do I need to take care of, how can I make this better, right? Become a peacemaker. Because I think we're just, hormonally, biologically more wired that way as women.
Interesting. I thought it was kind of just more of a me thing. I thought some women did really have it where they could just like tune it out. So that is kind of an interesting point. Probably right.
We'll have to take a survey. I don't know many women that can just tune it out, but kudos to the ones who can. I think, and it's probably less of the women who can do it successfully. It's probably not so much a tune out, but proper boundary, setting, proper regulation of their own nervous system, being able to sense, when they kind of need a timeout. And I think it just all goes back to nourishing and supporting their nervous system properly. And then they're not kind of on this like high alert space. Would you agree?
100%. Yep. I think you're right on that one for sure.
Yes. Yeah. So when it comes to like the whole puzzle piece aspect of things and putting stuff together for your clients, what do you kind of get for feedback from clients? Are there a lot of clients that are, totally on board with it? Or are they kind of like, oh no, I'm just going to like take this one test and I'm good with the information that this is giving me? Or do you find that a lot of them do want to dive deeper and get more pieces? Is it kind of split?
I would say it's split. Do you find that?
I think that there's certainly some people that, just want small pieces of information and they're good with that. And then there's people who, you can't give them enough basically, and they're happy to dive deeper. And I think I said this a little bit ago, that we certainly are able to, tailor it based on who it is, right? And whether we're giving them just a little foundational support and they do that and they never kind of go deeper, or it's people who do want to dive deeper and find every piece of the puzzle,
Right.
Put it together. We're able to support either.
There's so many barriers, that you have to we do on our end of things too. Like I'm thinking of a specific case this week, but she was, and I said, I love mold. She was she just ran the oak, but you could just see it. She had 3 of her fungal markers out, there's just a bunch of red flags for mold, but her husband wasn't on board. She's like, he already thinks I'm crazy, so you have those different barriers you have to try to overcome as well. Or finances, you'll find that one quite often because, our world is not, in my opinion, it's inexpensive because of the way it made me feel. But, a lot of people, it's just, finances are a big part of it. They think it's expensive. They don't want to do additional testing, those type things. So helping people overcome those barriers too is also challenging, but fun when you get to see them kind of overcome them as well.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Because yes, sometimes there is, barriers to finding the next puzzle piece or putting them together, right? And I think we hear this so often with mold specifically, is men think it is no big deal and it can affect women. I think partly too how it affects hormones. Women can feel way more terrible from exposure than men can. But yes, I've heard so many husbands be like, we're not testing the house. No, we're not. It's not a big deal. There's mold everywhere, which I wouldn't disagree, right? Mold is in our environment. Right. But yes, there's certain barriers, certain things that need to be overcome. And we're able to just help when they can't dive deeper. Okay, so maybe you can't write a mycotox test, or you're not going to remediate your mold, but what can we do to support your system now, right? In whatever container, whatever space we have, how can we support you best?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's where I think the beauty of health coaching comes into play, and how no one case is the same. You're able to, be working for EquiLife and doing this for the time that you have. You're an expert at just kind of taking case by case and doing the best you can to support the client wherever they're at, whatever they can do. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's a little, but we give them what we can and move on from there.
Yep. Meet them where they're at. We say that all the time.
Yes. Did you say meet them where they're at?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes people come back and, a year later, it's okay, I'm ready to do this. And great. Then you take the next step, right? It doesn't have to be boom, 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 one thing after another.
Yeah, those are so fun too. You maybe meet with them initially for, a small lab review, and they just seem really you're right here. But then they come back and they're more relaxed and more open. They want to go a little bit further. That's super rewarding too. You're okay, so I'm just telling all the other coaches out there, you are making a difference, even though sometimes you don't feel like you are. And you get to see that reward when they come back and okay, I'm ready to go a little bit further now, when you thought they just completely shut you down.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes they just need time and space to digest it all. Yeah. And with those clients, that's a testament to your coaching and your ability to kind of make them feel comfortable, right? That no trust of them feeling okay, I'm ready to take the next steps. And they probably sense that you were invested in their well-being, right? There's so much that comes into play with people that may seem guarded at first, and then they open up, down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. If people are listening and they kind of wanted to connect with you further, do you have social media accounts? Do you have any places that you show up other than EquiLife?
Sometimes I have Instagram. It's Coach Leah Flynn. I go through little spurts where I do really good and then take a break. So I've kind of, been on a break for a while, but I intend on getting back on there. So they can follow me on Instagram, Coach Leah Flynn.
That's great. Yeah. I think sometimes taking breaks allows you to come back a little bit stronger the next time, right? If it's, a labor of love and it's something that you just like doing and enjoy putting content out there, and doing it at your own pace is important.
I miss your reels, by the way.
Say that again.
I miss your reels, by the way.
I know. So I was just going to oust myself, and then I was like, oh, well, but yes, I just decided I was going to take the summer. My kids were home. The baby, honestly, it was easier when he was a newborn to be doing some of that stuff because I could just put him in a seat. But once he started walking, it just kind of became like, it was a lot. I was taking time away from them. I have a daughter and she's 6 years old, and I honestly don't love to let her see me in front of a camera, like doing stuff like that, because she doesn't understand. And I explained to her, but I think it's still hard for her to understand that I'm, putting health information out there and I'm helping people. And it's not just about me, dancing or being silly or, fixing my hair in front of a camera. So I'm careful about what I do in front of her also. So I decided that, I was going to let the summer kind of go by, and I was going to get back into it when they were back in school.
That's super smart. Protecting her from that world, because there's so much out there. And then, he's busy. He has a lot of things to do in his day. So
yes.
You don't get to do things right now.
No, but there will be a season where it all comes back soon. I'm feeling more creative now that I simply just have, the space, right? They're not like, I'm not hearing them talk as I'm working, downstairs. So the fact that they're, happy and in school, I think I will have more capacity to get back into it in a way that I feel like it's not being forced, and I'm truly bringing my passion back to the people that are hanging out with me there. So thank you so much for being a guest on the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast. This is so fun for me. I appreciate you sharing everything you did with our listeners. And I don't have to say that I'll talk to you soon, because I will. We get to be in touch all the time.
Well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Oh, thanks so much, Leah. Take care.
Thanks.